Few hours before trouncing the Lakers' backups yesterday, the Blazers announced they've agreed to a multi-year extension with head coach Chauncey Billups, now under contract through the 2027-28 season. Portland increased their win total by 14 games over last season. The Phoenix Suns have fired head coach Mike Budenholzer after just one season on the bench. Phoenix missed the play-in with the largest payroll in league history and will now look for a head coach for their third consecutive offseason. The NBA play-in games start tomorrow afternoon with the 7 versus 8 seed games. First up, it'll be a 4:30 tip. The Hawks at the Magic, and then followed by the Grizzlies at the Warriors. We'll have both games over on 910 ESPN Portland. And on the Diamond, the Mariners, winners of their last 4. They're off today as they start a 9-game road trip at the Reds, Blue Jays, and Red Sox. Seattle now 8-8 on the season. Third in the AL West, but just a game and a half out of the lead. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Jeff Rust from the George McCoy at Warren Allen Sports Desk. Hurt and missing work, insurance companies acting like jerks. Don't call your mom, call George McCoy at warrenallen.com.
Save the date. Your local Toyota dealers present the 11th annual Fan Golf Classic at Langdon Farms Golf Club on Tuesday, June 24th. Keep it on the Fan for details. This is Danny and Dusty.
Meringatang is going to be a thing.
You're not coining anything new.
With Danny Meringue and Dusty, the Fan Man Hera.
I'll throw some monkey sounds in there and call it good.
The old Danny Meringue pie?
Danny and Dusty on the Odyssey app and 1080.
Yeah, this is going to be awesome.
The Fan.
Good afternoon! Hey, welcome in. Happy Monday, a sunny Monday. Spring 3.2.
Yeah, 100%, baby.
Let's go.
Sun's out, legs out.
We just got the inflatable pool delivered by Amazon this morning.
Oh, say what?
The girls are off school today, so yeah, they're having a good old time out on the back deck.
Oh, look at that. What a great day. Sun is shining, and it comes right as the Blazer season ends.
Thigh season, baby.
Thanks, writers.
So, yeah, right? Mother Nature.
Hey, look, I'm on board with it. I get to enjoy it now.
Knowing that Blazer season over, sun can shine now. Boy, what a weekend it was. We had a wild weekend.
This was a heavy sports
Really?
weekend.
What happened? Did I miss it?
Yeah. Golly. The Masters was incredible. I mean, it lived up and a little bit more. Everybody got exactly what they wanted out of yesterday,
Except for Bryson DeChambeau.
I think we got what we wanted in that one. Even though I do like
So
Bryson,
he didn't
more
get
now.
what he wanted.
We got a Rory meltdown and a Rory win.
Yeah.
Like, that was like the best of both worlds.
Watching that
was fantastic.
from Moda, everybody in the media room was just like, oh, no, when he double bogeyed. It was just like,
Which time?
yeah.
Yeah.
Just-
It was an incredible final round of golf. And then you have Justin Rose, who did his part in birding, 6 of the last 8 holes, and then nails a 20-footer that forced the playoff hole. And it was Rory goes into what forced the playoff was Rory going into the bunker and then
Again.
whoopsies, missing a putt. Boom. We get a playoff. Rory comes out on top. Incredible drama throughout the entire day. Captivating. I was at, my daughter had a soccer game, and then my son had a flag football game. Masters app, the most reliable piece of technology in my life. I was able to watch all of it. I had like one AirPod in, so parents were like, oh, he's watching what's happening. I was really focused on what was happening on the golf course instead.
Just eyes glazed over.
Yeah. I mean, I caught a few things. I've made a critical mistake. I promised my son $6 for every pick 6 that he gets. Second defensive play of his flag football season, pick 6, looks right at me, and I was like, damn.
Please tell me he did like a Johnny Manziel cash thing.
No, he didn't. No, he didn't.
A little grenade celly?
God, no. He does not watch enough jaw highlights to get the
Finger guns.
He went scatter. He
There
went
you
with
go.
the machine gun. No, he didn't.
We had a grenade celly at the Hoop Summit.
Hey, it's
Tunde dropped it.
It's not a grenade celebration. It is taking the words out of my mouth, throwing them away, and blocking out all the noise. Which is the best cover John Morant could ever have for that celebration.
Yeah.
But I ended up watching the entirety of the Masters on my phone at first, then went home, and it was right when Rory was making the turn. Perfect. Was able to watch the back 9 in my home, without distraction, drama.
I was not distraction free.
Oh, and then what made it for the perfect viewing experience is I looked at the lineup that the Lakers were rolling out, and I was like, I'm not watching this.
Oh, look, no, I don't think anyone in press row watched the game in front of them. So for those that don't know, we have a stats monitor in front of us. We can change the channel on that, and we all changed it to channel 30 to have it on the Masters, and then pretty much all of us had our laptops on Clippers Warriors.
Yeah. Which was a
So-
great game.
Yeah, no, I mean, speaking of playoff in one, you have overtime in the other. The sports gods were aplenty on Sunday.
Oh man.
Had an overtime game at the Hoop Summit Saturday night.
Yeah.
I mean,
Not a 30-point win.
no, man. And I'm going to effort to try to find the audio from the post game press conference from World Team coach Marshall Cho, the former coach at Lake Oswego, and Dame Sarr and Tunde Isufu. For everyone that was in that room when they got done and what they talked about and what it means to these guys, because Tunde is from Benin, an African nation right next to Nigeria. He's the biggest thing from their country. And he's just this young kid who basically left everyone at home. I mean, he was crying uncontrollably coming into the press conference, like how much everything meant to him and just how much bigger than basketball this was.
Mm-hmm.
When this press conference got done, you looked around the room. There wasn't a dry eye in the place. It was incredible. One of the most insane things I've ever been a part of in just being around sports. It was humbling and amazing at the same time. And like what Marshall Cho does with these young men in such a short time and how much he imparts into them was staggering.
Pretty cool.
Oh, dude,
Pretty cool.
it's one of those things I'll remember for the rest of my life.
That's very cool, and it was a busy sports Saturday too, because you had the Hoop Summit, then you had the University of Tennessee telling Nico Iamaleava
There you go.
whoosh, Iamaleava to go pound sand,
Mm-hmm.
and that is something.
Yeah.
Especially
Tried to
with
Cam Newton it.
the local ties that story has taken a turn with. That story comes out on Saturday. You have the Hoop Summit, and Jazzy Davidson in the women's side goes
Just balled everyone up.
Goes
17,
crazy.
6, and 6.
overtime in the men's game. You have Masters Saturday where Rory goes like 6 straight holes with nothing but threes,
Mhm.
and everybody's like, oh, he's gonna do it. Sunday we wake up, Chauncey Billups gets
Surprise!
a contract extension, multi-year contract extension, which we're going to talk about at length. Then that was like the most Blazer-worthy note of the day because of the fact that the Lakers played nobody.
The game didn't matter, but
Didn't matter.
We ended up doing Chauncey and Joe's extensions before the game. Then we did exit interviews after the game.
Holy smokes. And then you have the Masters finish. It was a jam-packed weekend. The playoffs are set in the NBA-ish. Set-ish.
Well,
Got the play-ins
yeah.
still to go. But we know what the field is.
with one of those teams now being the Golden State Warriors because
yo.
they lost in overtime to the unstoppable basketball robot that is Kawhi Leonard, who played over 43 minutes for the first time since 2023
Oh,
in
really?
that game.
Get out of town.
Heaven forbid he's actually healthy, because that team gets scary.
Yeah.
If he is.
All right. And now today we wake up, Mike Budenholzer gets fired. Duh.
The most expected thing, as well as David Griffin in New Orleans.
We got some of the celebration for Rory McIlroy we got to get to today.
Grand Slam.
Yep. And then we already have a who's in the Nico Iamaleava sweepstakes.
Mm.
Some names.
Mm.
And then one thing that we'll have for you today is this has been a bone of contention with you and one Ryan Day.
Mm.
We have an answer.
Yeah, I don't buy it.
Of course you don't.
I don't buy it.
All right. Well, we have an answer on something Ryan Day today, and it's definitive.
Mm.
I would say that if somebody knows,
Definitive lies.
this person knows. This person knows.
Mhm.
But we got a jam-packed day, and look, it's got to start with. I really wanted it to start with Rory McIlroy, but the Blazers' Chauncey Billups dust
Yep.
yesterday. That's a massive story because now it gives us framing for what we're looking at with the Portland Trailblazers moving forward. And I don't think it's what anybody expected at the beginning of this season.
God, no.
And there's a lot of people that are upset about it. There's a lot of people, though, that are looking at it through the prism of, well, Chauncey Billups got these guys to play really damn hard, too. And we have seen growth and we have seen development. I didn't expect it to happen yesterday.
No.
But Chauncey Billups will return on a multi-year contract extension. We know Joe Cronin is already going to be back on a multi-year contract extension. Does the back half of this season do enough to give you confidence in Chauncey Billups? 503-864-6326. That is the fan text line. That is where we start this show off because Chauncey Billups, Joe Cronin, they're going to be running the show in Rip City for the foreseeable future. This is Danny and Dusty on 1080 The Fan. All right, the Portland Trail Blazers announced on the day of their final game of the season that Chauncey Billups will be returning, agreeing to a multi-year contract extension. We don't know how many years for either Billups or for Joe Cronin on their extensions, but for the foreseeable future, those will be the two guys in control. Cronin, we found out a couple of weeks ago on Sunday, we found out Chauncey Billups in a multi-year contract extension. This was something that at the beginning of the year, it did seem like it would be a stretch to say that Chauncey Billups would be back. But as the season went on, and you had said this on the air several times, there is an openness and a willingness for Chauncey Billups to return.
Yeah, no, and that was the thing of this, where things changed, I guess, is the easiest way to put this, is in December, this was not on the table. It was not on the table. And I've talked to be blunt, I've talked to Chauncey multiple times throughout the year, and in off-the-record conversations about kind of where things stood and where he thought things were at. And I would say probably 6 weeks, 2 months ago, somewhere right in that range, that changed. And that's why I was like, look, it's opened a door. And even last week I said I didn't think it was likely to happen still, but it started to circulate. It was, you have to kind of read between the lines on stuff of like what people want out there versus what is actually going on out there. And there was, with everybody in town for Hoop Summit, there was a lot of talk about will he or won't he kind of a deal. And you had heard that the Blazers and Billups' representative, Andy Miller, were talking, but we didn't know how close things were truly going to get and how much of it was a narrative being pushed as opposed to, no, they're actually going to do it. And it wasn't a surprise, but I thought they would wait a couple of days to kind of see where things went, because we'll talk about the Budenholzer firing in Phoenix. There were two teams in Denver and Phoenix that had interest in Chauncey Billups.
And those are both open.
Mm-hmm.
Both of them. And then Memphis as well is an open job. And that kind of grindhouse feel, but it would be in line with the way that Chauncey Billups coaches. But the Blazers do extend Billups, and Joe Cronin was asked about the timing of it yesterday after the game in the season-ending press conference.
You know, the last couple of years, it's been complicated. From, a team that we hoped could be competitive a few years ago to a team that had a really rough season the year prior to very subpar start to this season. So those are tough, navigating that as a group, and that's something I'm really proud of, is how we stayed together. Nobody panicked. We believed in what we were building. We believed in, the group of people we have, including, of course, the players that we have. And when we started taking those steps, it was, I don't think it was anything that surprised us. We just didn't know exactly when that was going to happen. When those guys, started playing the level of defense that we expected, when they, started to be more and more connected, when, we started winning ball games and being really competitive on a nightly basis, that changed everything for us. And we're really proud of, what's happened this second half of the season.
Is that concerning to you that you hear, we know, and I know there's a lot of people that are upset with the Chauncey Billups extension because
they think
they're going
a lot more than it does.
Well, they're going down the road of, well, we have a large enough sample size. We're going to take this last stretch of the season and say that's definitively, because you're hearing Joe Cronin. Mm-hmm. Joe Cronin doesn't help this by saying, look, we looked at what happened at the end of the year. Well, we'll be winning 10 of 12 games in that stretch pre-All-Star break, coming back from the All-Star break and performing above expectations and not shutting guys down, albeit against competition that was not very good in the back half of the year. But they started winning games, peeling off games. They were gunning for the playing game for the longest time, which you and I both were like, that ain't it, boss. But is this sample size enough to kind of push people over the hump? Or what? To me, it doesn't.
Look, this is where I stand. If you're using Chauncey Billups' record against him, you're being willfully stupid. Full stop. Mm-hmm. You're being willfully stupid. There is intentional tanking in there that amounts to probably 100 games.
And this is where I go to, you can't use his full body of work either.
No.
This
you can't.
The back half of this season, I do not believe is enough to sit there and be like, yep, guy of the future. But Chauncey Billups was hired and then handed a turd sandwich of a roster.
Yeah, it didn't
And
make
like
a ton
I
of
know
sense.
that's rough to say, but think of where they were. He gets hired. Damian Lillard requests a trade not because of Chauncey Billups,
No, because of everything that happened before.
and then goes. You have a complete rebuild as opposed to taking over a team that is a perennial playoff team.
Mm-hmm.
And then they rip it down to the studs, are intentionally losing games his first 3 seasons at the end of the year and really going bare bones on everything. It was not a good roster, not a roster that was built to compete or win any games. And then we saw this year, I think if you use the full body work, and I just won't go the last 41 games, which Joe Cronin is in saying that because they played a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
It's not helping the narrative around Chauncey Billups because this year in its entirety was wholly development and getting guys to buy in.
Mm-hmm.
And he has done that.
And that's the thing that's more important than the wins or losses for them right now. I'm efforting. I want to grab some audio from the exit interview here that we can kind of revisit a little bit later, but I'll paraphrase some of what came out of some of the other players. The players all wanted Chauncey Billups back. Even though it's tough to play defense like that, they enjoy it. They enjoy going out there and being just a complete pain for opponents. And some of the other guys have had, like Ant's been open about it. Jeremy's been open about it. Like as it's been difficult in the sense of the offense changing and where guys have certain roles. Matisse Thybulle, even outside of his injury, he was kind of unsure of where he was going to fit into things, despite being a defensive specialist. Denny talked about when he got here, unsure of his role and opportunity and what he was going to do. But the one thing that they all say is we're happy to have him back because he empowers us. He trusts us. He builds us up. He takes us down when we need it. And then he helps us get through the next thing. And there was a line from Matisse that I thought was really funny where he goes, I don't know, man. I don't know exactly how old Chauncey is, but how many coaches in the league can get on a practice court with us, stop, show us exactly how we need to do it, and everyone in the room knows, yeah, that's probably how you should do it because he won a title and was an NBA Finals MVP. Probably a good guy. Like, you don't have to be a Hall of Famer to be a great coach. In fact, most of the time, significantly in the league, it's not Hall of Fame players that are great coaches. But there is a level of additional buy-in when you've done it before. There is a little bit more juice behind it, as if you will. These guys, for whatever you want to call it, they ride for him. And I've been saying this for 3 years. Look, I will say it again. I've said it God knows how many times. I don't think Chauncey Billups is the best X's and O's coach. And he admitted as much in his exit interview. Where I want to get better is on the offensive side of the ball, being more creative, being more about player movement, about body movement, and how I can visit those things and get better at those things. He's not dumb. He knows what he's looking at and where his shortcomings are. And where Chauncey is as a coach now versus where he was 3 years ago is vastly different. And we've got people on the text line. There's 2 championship-level coaches. I'm telling you that are available. Why don't the Blazers go get that? Because they're not a championship-level team. Stop it. There is never, ever been a great coach that took a bad team to the playoffs. It's not happened. Great teams make great coaches. Stop with the whole, the coach fixes everything. I'm so sick and tired of it. Stop being willfully ignorant about that. That is not how this works. You don't go, Eric Spoelstra, you come here, it's a title team. No, that's not how this works. Michael Malone, Michael Malone just got fired because he's so over the top and so grating that he gets fired.
Look, in fandom will, like, look, we've all been guilty of this, being like, oh, hey, maybe Budenholzer, maybe Michael Malone, maybe Taylor Jenkins, right?
Yeah.
The reality is, those 3 jobs are also open: Denver, Memphis, Phoenix. Okay? There will be other jobs that do open up over the course of this offseason. The Blazers' job is right now the fourth most attractive, maybe third but Phoenix still has stars.
No,
but
one.
a star. But it's one of the least attractive jobs because of the lack of a star player, right? And there is a lot more that is kind of percolating around this. Chauncey Billups, I think, did a very good job of developing players this year.
Yes.
This year, I don't think that you can look at it and you could say anything otherwise, because he did.
Mm-hmm.
He actually did, and the guys started buying in at the end of the year. But there is also a larger issue with this Blazers team when you look at it. And look, some red flags started going up when they were talking about what's this offseason and what is on this roster right now. Because you said it, great talent makes great coaches.
Yep.
That is true. It sure didn't sound like from Joe Cronin or Chauncey Billups after the game yesterday that they are in a position where they're going out and wanting to make, whether you want to call it making a big swing or going and making a significant roster change that will result in anything other than 36 and 46 like we saw this year. Because the comments were, this is a slippery slope. We'll get to those after Rust with SportsCenter.
Now, from the George McCoy at Warren Allen Sports Desk, a SportsCenter update on 1080 The Fan.
First on The Fan, a few hours before trouncing the Lakers' backups yesterday, the Blazers indeed announced they agreed to a multi-year extension with head coach Chauncey Billups. Portland increased their win total by 14 games over last season. Phoenix Suns have fired head coach Mike Budenholzer after just one season on the bench. Phoenix missed the play-in with the largest payroll in league history and will now look for a head coach for the third consecutive offseason. The NBA play-in games begin tomorrow night with the 7 versus 8 seed games. First up will be the Hawks at the Magic. That's a 4:30 tip, followed by the Grizzlies at the Warriors. We'll have both games on 910 ESPN Portland. And on the diamond, the Mariners, winners of their last 4. They're off today as they start a 9-game road trip at the Reds, Blue Jays, and Red Sox. Seattle now 8-8 on the season, third in the AL West, but just a game and a half out of the lead. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Jeff Rust from the George McCoy at Warren Allen Sports Desk. Hurt and missing work, insurance companies acting like jerks. Don't call your mom. Call George McCoy at warrenallen.com.
Your favorite fan shows are on YouTube. Mash the subscribe button and like us for live streaming video and 1080 The Fan on demand.
Blazers are bringing back Chauncey Billups and Joe Cronin. And we do have a ton of feedback on the fan text line. We will get to some of that. But I think more notably, we are staying on the clock today. And so we will have time to do that as long as we continue to do this.
Yeah, the first day post Jeff Austin. Nice work, guys.
There you go. in memoriam.
Pouring one out.
R.I.P.
R.I.P.
Still alive.
Yeah.
Not dead, but there. All right. There were some red flags, though, about bringing back Cronin and Chauncey Billups. You cannot win in the NBA without a star, right? And we got a lot of feedback coming in. One on the YouTube chat's like, Doc Rivers, he did it without stars. Not really. Orlando, he had prime Tracy McGrady, Blake Griffin, Chris Paul in L.A. I don't know. Those Boston Celtics teams are pretty good.
Yeah.
Right? But that's neither here nor there, okay? The Blazers need a star. And there were a couple of comments that I went, okay, this is a little shaky and makes you feel uneasy if you're a Blazer fan. Here's Joe Cronin on where they find their superstar.
Our challenge is keep finding players, keep developing players. From the development standpoint, we've seen a handful of guys take really nice big jumps this year, and I don't expect those to not continue. And there's a lot of talent on this roster, and I wouldn't put ceilings on a lot of these guys. Like, there's still a lot of time and a lot of talent that can be maximized here. It's like these guys, I wouldn't write them off to becoming those star level guys. But with that, we've got to keep getting better externally as well.
Okay. Guys that are here developing into star level players. I think we have seen tremendous growth from Toumani Camara, Denny Avdia. You've even seen it from Shaedon Sharpe too, right? But those aren't the workhorse stars in the NBA.
No.
Now, Houston and what they are doing, it really is. It's an outlier of
A bunch of really good young players, but
Yeah.
is there a true star there?
and they really are an outlier.
Yeah.
But with a coach who has done it before in Boston, right? In Ime Udoka.
It seems like a very similar path.
It does, but you're going to bank on the outlier, right?
Before we dive into this, I do want to say this. With everybody in town for Hoop Summit, it's Gospey High School. And there has been a lot of talk about the transition of the NBA in general. And I'm not saying the Blazers and the Rockets are making the right move here. They could be zigging when everybody else is zagging and it blows up in their face. But there is a belief in the NBA of the Big Three eras and even Big Two eras kind of coming to a close because of what the CBA is and how long it runs, to where it might become one dyed-in-the-wool star, which you need to have. That I'm not arguing against. But it might almost be better and better served to have a ton of higher level depth.
No doubt about. Well, having a ton of higher level depth, you still need a star, right?
Yes, you still need. Here's the thing: depending on who you talk to, there is varying levels of degrees of like what star meant. Like, could you get by with two, third team All NBA guys, as opposed to one first team and one fringe all-star kind of guy or something along those lines? And a lot of people kept pointing to Houston as this test case of like, let's see what they do in the playoffs. You know what I mean? And again, this is not to excuse the Blazers. I think it's an interesting thing of which way the CBAs define eras because of the team building things that the blocks that come to place and how you have to navigate them. I'm wondering if we do see kind of a divergent path out of that.
It will be interesting, but also I think when you look at Houston and how they were built, they may not have a star, but the last 3 years they have had the number 2 pick, the number 3 pick, the number 4 pick, and the number 3 pick in the last 4 years.
had some really good lottery luck. Really good lottery luck.
Again, the number 3 pick, the number 4 pick,
Mhm.
the number 3 pick, the number 2 pick.
Really good lottery luck.
The Blazers
Had
have a
three-
3.
They had a 7, a 3, and a 7.
Yeah.
And then we'll find out in now less than a month.
Okay. So let's also remember
Mhm.
what Houston went through in order to get those guys, too.
They also had more to deal away when they did it.
Okay. All right. Chauncey Billups kind of echoed what Joe Cronin said, and this is where I'm like, oh boy.
I look around the league, right, and you say having a star, and it's true. You know, you gotta have top flight guys. But to me, I think we're raising that. All right, I think we're growing that. Like I look at like when OKC traded for Shea, he wasn't a star. He wasn't a star yet. Now he's probably gonna be the MVP of the league. Joker wasn't a star when he got to Denver. You know, they raised him into that. Giannis wasn't a star when he got to Milwaukee. They raised him into that. And I just think there's beauty in that because, again, when you raise them into that, they're raised playing the right way. And all of those guys, they just play right. They don't like, give me the ball, watch out, I got it. They just play right with the team because they was raised into that stardom. And that's where I think we're trying to go here. You know, you look at hopefully some of the leaps. You look at what Denny's done and Shaden and Scoots taking a leap. I thought Ant had a really good job. I mean, we're raising the guys. I mean, talk about that stretch we was on. I mean, DA was 22 and 15 on that stretch that we just got a lot of situations that we're raising that I think are pretty cool. So most people would say, yeah, go get such and such, or yeah, go. Well, we might have that person. You know, we might already have those guys, but we'll see.
Okay, I get what he's saying with Shea and Giannis, right? But in Shea Gilgeous-Alexander's third year in the NBA, he was averaging 24, 5, and 6. I mean, in Giannis's fourth year in the NBA, Giannis was averaging 23, 9, and 5.5 with a steal and a half and 2 blocks per game. Like, we've also seen some of the young guys in their development. Denny Avdia obviously had a much better year. He's at 17, 3, and 4, right? And he is in his fifth year in the NBA. Shaden Sharp, 18.5.
19, 5, and 3.
Yeah, 5 and 3, right?
Not bad.
Anthony Simons
Had a down year.
has not averaged 23 points a game in his career.
Now his career has what, 22?
22.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that's 7 years.
Mhm.
So you look at it and you say, yeah, those guys, they did develop into stars and they didn't see that coming, but they also flashed it really damn early in their career.
And again, this is not a, well, the Blazers might. What they're looking at is Denny Avdia and Toumani Camara, who
Yes.
were both late bloomers. And look, it's no secret. I thought the Denny move was a good move.
You sure
I'd
did?
be lying through my teeth if I thought I said he was going to be this good. No. I said 18, 8, and 5.
Especially at the end of the year. He's
18,
really
8,
good.
and 5 is what I saw from him. Going back to January 1st, which is now like 43 or 44 games, he's like 21, 9, and 5. That's an all-star. Like, and if you're talking yourself into that, fine. I pull it back a little bit just because of context. But if you told me Denny averaged 28 and 4, it wouldn't surprise me now. And that's real growth. But is that the star? I don't think so. I think he's probably a number 3 now. Maybe if there is another gear, because there's a lot of opportunity for him to get better.
Yeah.
In a lot of different things. But they went a step too far for me in the believing in their own guys, and the caution that I have is that it is a path that the Blazers walk down with CJ McCollum.
Yes.
And
that's what it feels like. Those are the red flags that are kind of popping up where you're like,
You're not going to trade this dude because you're worried he's
Oh,
going to
boy.
blossom somewhere else, or you drafted him and you developed him. And this is not a Blazers-centric thing. This
No.
happens around the league. When you draft your guy, the last thing you want is your guy to get traded away and go be good somewhere else. The thing that, and I asked off the record around the organization, and I asked it during the press conference, how do you guard against getting too high on your own supply? Because that is the bigger issue for me. That's 2016 all over again. That's the 2017 draft. That's 2019.
Yep.
That's a bigger issue to me than what they mentioned here. Although when Chauncey started talking, my ears perked up because I was like, there's a chance you might have that. And look, in reality, there is a chance. To me, it's a small chance that one of those guys develops into that. I think Shaedon has got another gear to him. Yeah, I think he's a 20-point-a-game scorer. I think Denny is that. I think 2 is a 50-50 shot at making an all-defensive team.
Mhm.
That's a pretty good place to start. But the whole idea of them not being willing to go after somebody else because they think they might have that in-house does concern me a little bit.
And Joe Cronin talked about big swings.
This year, I felt like we got a ton of data. What's working, what isn't, what skill sets do we need to add, what types of personalities do we need to add. We learned a lot about our roster this year. Do we have all the answers yet? No. Are we still learning? Yes. I mean, still the second youngest team in the league, still have a lot to learn about and see from our young players and how these veterans fit in with them. So the approach, though, I think we can definitely be more diligent about the specific type of player that we're adding. And I love that we're at that stage where, as a front office, we don't feel that pressure to keep taking swing after swing to try and hit on the next up-and-coming guy. I think we're starting to feel really comfortable with our talent base that we can be more diligent about adding specific types of guys.
That is that is a good sign that they trust the guys that they have, but it's also the concerning one of like that you said when you got hired, like you're not going to be afraid to take the big swing. It seems like what you kind of framed right there with you draft these guys, you get an attachment to them, or you bring in a guy and you develop him and you get that attachment to him, and you're not willing to let him go to make a bigger swing. And like, look, reality is this team, it played above the expectations in that back half of the year.
I mean, it's a 15-win improvement. I mean,
with a lot of guys that were still shut down.
Mhm.
DeAndre Ayton, Jeremy Grant, Anthony Simons. We did
Rob
not
Williams.
see those guys at the back half of the year. Rob Williams, well, is that by his choice or not?
Yeah.
By the organization's choice. But with those guys still in the mix, what does this team look like? Because in the front half of the season, they were there and it still looked clunky,
Mhm.
right? And it's not like, to use a Neil O'Sheaism, the panacea isn't going to be, hey, they're going to be back and we're going to be that much better. DeAndre Ayton played really well in that 12-game, winning 10 of 12, right?
Mhm.
Played really damn well. But you have a 7-footer, got injured, going to be coming back off of a significant injury. What happens with Jeremy Grant? What happens with Anthony Simons? What happens with DeAndre Ayton?
I'll say Jeremy flagged a few things in his press conference. I'll say that. Lot of mentions of agents and
See?
discussions with the front office.
And you have a player of that caliber, okay, where Jeremy Grant still does have value. But what are you going to get in return for him?
And that's what's going to be interesting is, and we've talked about this so much, in now less than a month, May 12th, the draft lottery is going to make a lot of decisions. Here's what's interesting for me to what Joe said. The idea of not being forced to take the big swing. And look, I think they have in the draft taken the biggest swings. I think Scoot was a big swing. Shaedon was undoubtedly a big swing, a total unknown. Didn't play basketball for basically a year and a half.
Mhm.
Didn't play in college. The last time he played was, in high school. And now he's starting to deliver on some of the high-end talent stuff. I think Donovan Clingan is a swing.
I do too, just because of where you drafted Clingan. Remember, 2 picks later, Zach Edey went to Memphis, and everybody's like, ooh,
The Grizzlies got Edey,
Yeah.
They didn't go this way. I think when the Blazers look at their roster, they look at 2, they look at Denny, and they look at Donovan, and they're trying to see they're not just swinging for the fences. I think they look at those 3 guys as kind of the tent poles right now, and what are the things that you need to enhance those things.
Yeah.
Now, I think shooting is number one up and down the roster. That's the thing that they need the most, and they said as much. So does that impact who they draft now? Like, let's say something crazy happens and they move into the top 4. Let's just say they get 4th. Do they? Because right now it sounds like VJ Edgecombe is going to go 3rd, which would put Ace Bailey on the board. Do they take Ace Bailey? Is that the guy that they think is the guy that makes sense, or do they now potentially look to trade that pick and go a different path and prioritize more creation?
I will say, if there's anything from Cronin that he said in this press conference that he had gone the other direction on, this will tamper down the expectations of the move that they make. And because remember, they had
intentional.
Overhyped what they were going to do. They had overhyped Scoot Henderson and his impact when they drafted him 3rd overall. And it was to a detriment to the organization and to Scoot Henderson specifically.
Don't overpromise and underdeliver.
And Joe Cronin for, I'm going to make these big swings. He has toned that down a little bit. But that also gets the fan base all ramped up when you say we're going to be making these big moves, right?
Yeah, and I do believe that they are still motivated to make the big move if they can find the big move.
All right, let's get to our fan text line. A lot of feedback coming in, hot and heavy. You can text us 503-864-6326. Danny and Dusty on the Fan. 503-864-6326. That is the fan text line. Got a lot of texts coming in after Chauncey Billups announced a contract extension with the Portland Trail Blazers. Multi-year deal. Joe Cronin, general manager. Multi-year deal as the general manager of the basketball club. We've got a bunch of text. Okay, where do we even start? Well, the Blazers is jockeying in mediocrity for the foreseeable future. It's so Blazery. That one coming in. We got a lot of purgatory texts that have come in.
It's just so tiresome. They haven't even entered mediocrity yet. That's the thing. It's just like,
well, I think that is kind of one of the symbols of mediocrity is when you are not even there yet and you're like, you know what? We're just going to sit. This is what fandom is, though.
Go ask the Houston Rockets or go ask the Detroit Pistons what it actually is. They were not good 2 years ago. The Pistons weren't good a year ago. It's, oh, my God. Well, now you're talking about a team in the West that and a 2 seed in the Rockets. They're a freaking 2 seed.
Yeah.
And they still have holes, and people are picking whoever comes out of the play-in, basically like, oh, they're probably going to beat the Rockets because they're untested, and they might. But you look at the Pistons right now, and they're matched up against the Knicks. There are people right now who are like, I think the Pistons are going to beat the Knicks. They won 15 games last year.
Yeah.
Mediocrity and purgatory is when there's no path out.
Well, and where is the path out for this team? And that's where this is purgatory. Like it really is, because what did the Houston Rockets do, Danny? They won 17 games, 20 games, and 22 games. That's what they did.
Yeah.
They
got lucky in the lottery.
No, but they're the 2 seed right now because they went through hell for 3 seasons and they committed to it. And you're right, they did get lucky in the lottery, but guess what helped their luck? Winning 17, 20, and 22 games.
And how many games did the Blazers win in the last 3 years?
And right now, look at where the Portland Trail Blazers are, though, right? Like, if this isn't...
They're a year behind what the Rockets were.
Okay,
they're on almost the exact same trajectory.
So...
They're almost the exact same trajectory.
41-41 last year for the Houston Rockets.
Yes. 5-game difference.
Okay. I don't see that because
I don't expect them to be the number 2 seed team in the West. I'm not saying that. But when you're talking about purgatory is when you don't have
same trajectory.
The Suns are in purgatory.
The same trajectory. They had the 2, 3, 4, 3 picks. Yeah, they did get lucky in the lottery, but that's what it takes, right?
Yes. But you can't.
And have the Blazers gotten lucky in the lottery?
Once. As opposed to 4 times. And
So that's not the same trajectory.
No, it is, though, in the sense of the idea of, like, purgatory is when you don't have draft picks, you don't have a way out, and your only way out is
so
to
you're just
be
changing the
god-awful.
definition of your purgatory, but I'm
No,
telling you,
purgatory means there's no...
that is where the
you're
Blazers
stuck.
fans feel.
They're not stuck, though.
But that's what Blazers fans feel like.
That's-
We
hold
feel
on.
I don't care what
stuck.
they feel like.
But you should, because
No.
that's what everybody
Hold on,
says.
Hold on, you're not. You have an unwillingness to hear what other people are saying.
I have
and that's
unwillingness
it.
because it's not based in any reality.
But it is.
Your reality.
No, it's not. It's not reality. Reality is not having assets, not having young players, not having a young roster. If your roster is old, your draft picks are squandered, and you've got nothing else to go for. They have positive. This isn't me carrying the Blazers' water. This is looking around the NBA. If you look around the NBA, teams that are in purgatory don't have any assets. They don't have any draft picks. Their salary cap is hell. It's strapped out for 5 years. The Blazers don't have any of those. They have $50 million coming off the books in a year.
But this is where, and that is an issue, right? That's also, they got $50 million coming off the books in a year, but
up to 70.
But that also is a situation where Blazer fans are saying, can't you make the team better by making a move and facilitating a deal to make your roster better?
Yes, which is they have an opportunity to do that, which is what teams in purgatory, the Phoenix Suns can't make a move because of where they are on the cap. The Milwaukee Bucks can't make moves because of where they're at. Like, if you look up and down the NBA, the teams that are in purgatory are very, very, very clear. They don't have avenues, and their only way out is to be god awful.
Okay, what is the Blazers out?
What is the Blazers out? How many different ways can they go about it? They have
no. Like what? Now
you
May
mean
12th, if they win the
the
lottery, then that is your out, right? That's it.
Yeah, I mean that's a get out of jail free card for anyone.
For anybody.
But that's that's the luck of it all. And look, there's one title winner every year. Every other team's bad. This whole idea of like the rings culture stuff, it drives me crazy. You have to continue to build.
Yeah.
The second this team stops continuing to build, then they're in purgatory.
Yes, but
that's purgatory.
But this team is like so playing.
Is that the ceiling? Is that the ceiling? Are we done? Are they done? They have no assets. They're strapped out. They're the playing team.
Well,
they're the Chicago
hold
Bulls.
on. We just got done playing, and this is where like framing how Blazer fans feel. We just played the audio.
We need to be smarter about it.
Hold on, of the general manager saying, "I don't feel the need to take a big swing," and and then the star may be on this team. That was the head coach and the general manager, right?
Because they overpromised, and it was dumb to do.
It was dumb to do, and it happened, and they are downplaying the expectations, right? But when that is what is said and that is what is public, I understand how the Blazer fans are going to feel that way. That, all right, we feel stuck right now because in the NBA, you win with stars. And that guy isn't on the team. Now, I feel like there's a whole swath of the fan base that is unwilling to acknowledge that this team has developed and grown young players. And
they're still incredibly young.
And they are very young. They were younger than Auburn. But they still need that dude.
And I'm not disagreeing with that
right.
at all.
But
they have avenues to do that.
When your coach and your general manager are telling the fan base that move isn't going to be made, or doesn't feel like that move is going to be made, that's where they feel like that. And I understand that because you sit there and you're like, all right, well, I guess it felt everything that was said yesterday, it felt like a run it back year. And that was what fans started
was a run it back year.
That's what fans started to hate about Neil Olshey.
Yes.
And they don't want to have it happen again. And I, for one, am glad that this fan base, it finally is vocal enough to be like, no, we don't want that anymore. This is not going to be good enough.
When they
getting to the play-in, getting to the playoffs where we are a 6 through 10 seed.
Yeah. No,
we don't want that.
No, and you
I'm happy that the fan base is there, but
they're not. They're not there.
Be,
they're not there though. Like when they're in year 7 of this, like they were with Dame, that's purgatory.
Okay.
But they're not. They're in year 3.
I am totally fine, and I think it is our jobs to be the ones that do explain that to everybody, and so everybody's like, "All right, this is a path moving forward, right?"
And that's the thing. It's like the path is still as wide as a truck.
Yeah, man.
That's what I'm trying to tell people. Look, I'm not saying this is carrying the water for the Blazers. I'm looking around at organizations around the NBA and going, look, teams do studies on draft assets, draft capital, free agency, salary cap, and it's all this stuff that kind of comes out of it. And it gives you like multi-year projections. And you can talk about what the Rockets have, what the Thunder have, what the Jazz have, what the Blazers have, what the Pistons have, all of the younger teams that are starting to make the moves, and they all have the same basic tenets.
Yeah.
Now, they diverge based on your personnel.
Yeah.
But like what you can do, did the Lakers expect to get Luka Doncic? Did he factor into their 2, 3, 5-year plan? God, no. The NBA, and I'm not saying the Blazers are getting Luka, but I'm talking about the volatility of those projections. It's just on a dime. There's discussions of 3 different players in the NBA right now that you would not believe that might be on the move this summer.
Big names.
And they will shift the entire landscape of the NBA if it happens.
Yeah.
And what comes out of it, and nobody would have said this 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, let alone where things are now.
Yeah.
And that's why I look at this stuff and go, okay, can they do something? Can they figure something out? If they can't, then I'll get mad at them the same way I did Neil Olshey. But they don't, to your point, have the Dame yet.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is that the fan base looks at it completely different because they still feel stuck. Like
but it's a different team. It's a different
totally
era.
agree.
Everything
Totally agree.
is different.
But that's the way that it feels, right? But that's how fans feel because they're like, when can we get out of it? Like, perfect text. This sounds like some Mariners BS, right? Like 54%. And it doesn't help that, they were touting the back half of the season where they won 55%, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, although it is totally different, the books are clean, you have assets moving forward, it feels the same in that when is a jump going to happen? Because you haven't felt that jump since Dame was in his second year.
I saw people complaining through their noses about Denny Avdia and the overpay. How many of you are screaming about it now?
Well, okay.
But that's my point. You don't know as they continue to go and figure things out.
Yeah, well, I'm happy they're just holding the franchise accountable finally.
Talking to people in the front office, they're not settling. This isn't where they're at.
Yeah.
Like they don't think that this is the team that's going to take them into the next era. They think they have a couple pieces.
Yeah. All right, 503-864-6326. We'll get to some of your feedback. We are way over right now. Way over right now.
Oh, God.
Danny Dusty on the Fan.
Now, from the George McCoy at Warren Allen Sports Desk, a Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
Jeff Rust with your Sports Center update. First on The Fan, a few hours before trouncing the Lakers backups yesterday, the Blazers announced they've agreed to a multi-year extension with head coach Chauncey Billups. Portland increased their win total by 14 games. over last season. The Phoenix Suns have fired head coach Mike Budenholzer after just one season on the bench. Phoenix missed the play-in with the largest payroll in league history and will now look for a head coach for the third consecutive offseason. The NBA play-in games start tomorrow night with the 7 versus 8 seed games. First up, it'll be a 4:30 tip. The Hawks at the Magic, and then followed by the Grizzlies at the Warriors. We'll have both games on 910 ESPN Portland. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Jeff Rust from the George McCoy at Warren Allen Sports Desk. Hurt and missing work, insurance companies acting like jerks. Don't call your mom. Call George McCoy at warrenallen.com.
The Hot Corner, now in its new time. Tuesdays at 7 after Isaac and Soup on Portland's sports leader, 1080 The Fan. Danny Meringue.
I found 2 empty bottles of a particularly decent Chateau Noir Bordeaux 57 in your rubbish.
Dusty Hera.
You went through my garbage?
This is Danny and Dusty on the Odyssey app.
I find it particularly offensive that you use them to wash down an order from something called Macho Taco.
And Portland's sports leader, 1080
I would never drink a Bordeaux with a Macho Taco.
The Fan.
It was a burrito machisimo.
All right, it's 503-864-6326. Look at that. Last segment went so we were doing so good, and then we
Blew
went
that up.
so far. It took one text I read. It took one text.
Yeah.
All right. Let's just get to this question, and then I really can I talk about Rory and the Masters?
Yeah.
Can I talk about
I know you want
the
to do that.
greatest sports event of the weekend, which was not the Blazers and Chauncey Billups, but okay. This text is, I'd love to know what the path is. If they aren't getting a top draft pick, are they saying they don't expect to make a trade and never made a big free agent signing? Or are they saying don't expect to make a trade and the organization has never made a big free agent signing? So what is the path? If they're not winning the lottery, what's the path? Like that's the question that I think a lot of people, because here it is. We've heard in the previous regime with Neil O'Shea, pathways and all that crap,
Yeah.
right? And
Alpha Camino projections of 54 wins.
Blah. Okay. And we've heard so much about
Yeah.
hey, there's a pathway to do this. I think where Blazer fans are right now is when the hell are they going to take the path? Because we've had several paths that they've talked about. When are they going to take it and what does it look like?
This organization, you can't look at it's 55 years of this. It's like, no, you have to look at the windows.
Yeah.
The second that Joe Cronin and his front office turn down a trade that is meaningful, I will do the exact same thing that I did with Neil O'Shea when he refused to trade for Jimmy Butler or Paul George or James Harden. That transaction has not happened.
Yeah. And I think where there's a lot of fans, and I sit in this too, is that instead of the offers and turning them down, when is the franchise going to create that trade?
Look, they've
create
gone
that
out to try
option?
to find those
Right, and
transactions.
that's great, but all of the great GMs who end up winning rings, they don't go out and seek those out. They get them done,
Well,
right?
I'd argue some of them get dumped in their lap.
Well, Rob Pelinka is not a great GM
Well, no,
who's doing that. But
no, I'm talking
look,
just in general. Look at Pat Riley in Miami,
Mm-hmm.
LeBron James, Chris Bosh. I mean, go.
well, that's free agent,
But
yeah.
even then, it was a transaction.
and that's
Jimmy Butler wanted to go to Miami, and they helped facilitate.
And ain't nobody gonna want to help, gonna come here.
Yeah, well, the Blazers actually helped facilitate that. Neil O'Shea traded Myers Leonard
Yeah.
to Miami to take on Hassan Whiteside, which created the salary spot that allowed them to go get Jimmy Butler. Like, players decide where they want to go. And the only way Portland can somehow fall into this, and this is honestly the same situation in Oklahoma City. They had Paul George. If they don't have Paul George, they don't get SGA.
Yeah.
If Paul George is still in Indiana, he gets to
And
LA and SGA is a pacer.
yeah, and that, by the way, that was 5 draft picks that made that deal done. And SGA was a young,
He was a
promising
good
player.
player that people thought maybe if you squint, he's an all-star.
yeah.
But it was because they had Paul George. And it's like you have to be in the right place at the right time. And again, as much as luck plays into the draft, luck plays into transactions.
Yeah.
Do you have the guy that somebody wants? And you do that by developing guys, trading for guys, getting guys that have value. Which, if you look at what the Blazers have done, does Toumani Camara have value?
Yes, he does.
Does Denny Avdia have value?
Yep.
Do young players like Scoot Henderson, Shaden Sharp, and Donovan Clingan, do they have value?
It's
Varying
like
degrees.
it.
Varying degrees.
But
yeah.
you have to have the thing that somebody else wants in order to do that, or you have to be in the right place at the right time and then strike. The Cleveland Cavaliers and where they are right now are probably the best example of this. They got Jared Allen because they were willing to take on his salary because the Rockets didn't want him.
Yeah.
How has that worked out for them?
Well.
Okay. After they got Darius Garland and after they got Jared Allen, they get lucky once and they get Evan Mobley. If the Blazers got lucky in Scoot's draft and got Wemby, where are they?
Totally different.
And that's the thing is like,
Well, they're going to get lucky with Cooper Flag.
and if they do, heaven forbid they do, guess what?
Yeah.
Now the crux of what you do,
I don't think
is
heaven's going to forbid that.
Mm-mm.
No.
Mm-mm.
the things that you do now, if you've got two, Cooper and Denny, now what you do is vastly different.
Yeah. But, I mean, this is the thing, is that if you're going to make that trade and it's going to happen, the $100 million remaining on Jeremy Grant's deal, it's a tough one to move. You've got an expiring deal in Anthony Simons, an
NBA.
expiring deal in DeAndre Ayton. You have to have something that people want. And those are bigger contracts, but those aren't the guys that you mentioned with you got to have something that you want, right? Because they want young, promising talent.
And if you look at it,
that is
if
the
the
big
Blazers
issue.
run this back again,
Mhm.
it's a problem.
Yeah.
I will say that full stop. If they run this like the top 11 back,
Yeah.
it's a problem.
It is. It's an issue, man. It's an issue. All right. Wow. All right. We will have a full Masters breakdown. We will do that. We need enough time to do it. Let's get into the Nico Iamaleava situation coming up next, because, boy, this took a lot of twists, turns, and are the Oregon Ducks involved in it? Danny and Dusty on the Fan. Wild weekend on Rocky Top. The University of Tennessee, we talked about this on Friday when you were out, Danny. They had a holdout, like our first ever college football holdout.
This is
like it was an NFL team.
interesting.
Yeah, as Nico Iamaleava, their star budding quarterback, he was a no-show on Friday to practice. He wanted to get $1.5 million bump in his NIL. He wanted to go from just under $2.5 million up to $4 million in NIL money because
he saw that Bryce Underwood money.
Well, he saw Carson Beck and he saw was it Mensa, the quarterback at Duke, who went from Tulane to Duke, both getting $4 million. Was like, I want in on that, right? Saturday, Tennessee holds their spring game, and they had removed. Fans were like, uh-oh. They'd removed his jerseys from the team shop. Mm-hmm. They got their rosters when they rolled into their spring game, and Nico, number 8, was not on it anymore. And they announced that they had parted ways with the quarterback. And Josh Heupel, the coach of Tennessee, he had quite the statement following their spring game when he addressed Iamaleava's departure.
Obviously, we're moving forward as a program without him. I said it to the guys today. There's no one that's bigger than the Power T, and that includes me. And they hear me say that a lot inside of that team room. This program has been around for a long time with a lot of great coaches, a lot of great players that came before that laid the cornerstone pieces, the legacy, the tradition that is Tennessee football. It's going to be around a long time after I'm done and after they're gone. And that's what's special about being here is that there is a legacy and a tradition that is so rich.
He's saying, nope, not going to happen here. And look, this is as more and more information starts rolling out on what is going on, essentially, Iamaleava does not have an agent, which most of the high-profile guys do. Mm-hmm. His dad, and there's conflicting reports, it's either another family member or a family friend are handling all of his negotiations.
This sounds very Cam Newton-y.
And, well, yeah, back in the good old days when there was just a church that you could dump off that money to that your dad was the pastor of.
Super useful.
Super useful. Nobody could follow that cash. But this is where these guys are going, all right, we want more money. More money. We want the bag. We got you to the playoff. We want the bag because he's got a couple more years here. And Tennessee said no. And rightfully so with Tennessee because Nico is a good quarterback, and he's got a ton of potential and room to grow. But there is that sliding scale, right, of are you good enough, your talent, to how many issues you're going to bring.
Yes.
And when you are skipping out on meetings in practice, that, for a coach, is a bridge too far.
I'm all for NIL and the quote-unquote player empowerment stuff. Like, I'm about it because the NCAA screwed these guys over for 50 years. There's no way around that. But there is a bridge that is too far, and this is too far. The whole idea of, like, I know we're talking about this becoming professional sports and it becoming professionalized, and in that world there are contract disputes and holdouts and all those kind of things. But I I like that these coaches and these programs are putting their foot down, and it's not just him. There's other coaches around the country who are like, there's reports out there that Lanning was the guy who called Heupel and was like, hey, man, your quarterback's reps are out here shopping him.
Well, and that's the other report that is out there is that Dan Lanning is the one who notified Josh Heupel and said, quarterback's dad is trying to shop him around right now. And the blowback on that is I saw a lot of people on social media saying, oh, the guy whose quarterbacks have been Bo Nix, who transferred from Auburn, Dylan Gabriel, who transferred from Oklahoma, and now Dante Moore, who transferred from UCLA. That is not the issue. The whole issue here, and you mentioned the NCAA. The NCAA is the reason why this is the way it is. It's not the players. Mm-hmm. It's not the collectives.
No.
It is the NCAA turning their head for so many years, ignoring what was coming down and taking loss after loss after loss and making it so it's a lawless land of NIL that has created this atmosphere. And so with Lanning being the guy who told Heupel, though, the publicity of all of it, the fact that this is in public, that is why Heupel needed to draw that line in the sand. Because these things are happening on campuses across the country as teams are going through spring ball. There are players that are trying to get more NIL money every single day on every single campus. But when it becomes public, when you start missing activities and in the middle of the public kind of fighting that you're having to get more money, that's where it's the issue here. And there's also I think every single coach in the country would want to know if your representatives are shopping you around, because the coaches that don't understand the landscape of NIL and are not open with their players about it are the ones that are going to get burnt by this. And you've got to be open with your players about where you stand. And hey, look, if you want out, you could just let me know, man. Just let me know when you are out or you're thinking about leaving. The cloak and daggers of the transfer portal and shopping a player around without the head coach even knowing. No, I'd want to know if one of my guys was shopping around.
Not
to
even
another
one of
program.
your guys, your guy, your quarterback.
And to do it at to shop yourself around to Oregon especially, dude, just look at the depth chart of where you're shopping these guys around to.
There's 3 quarterbacks.
4. There's 4 quarterbacks at Oregon. You got Dante Moore, Austin Novosad, Luke Moga, and Akili Smith Jr. Every single one of those guys, they're all on different years too.
Yeah.
Like you, and
find a school's depth chart is a little more shallow.
Dante Moore's got 3 years.
Yeah.
Right. Akili Smith Jr. is the true freshman who's still supposed to be a high school senior. And they got quarterbacks that they're trying to get to commit for the 2026 season too. Like it is. Know where you're shopping these guys to, and especially don't do it to a program that is pretty stacked in the quarterback room.
Well, they already don't have a great idea of what his worth is because he was making what, 2.2, 2.5,
2.4 million.
He threw for 2,600 some odd yards, right, and like 18 touchdowns and 5 picks. I mean, so you weren't exactly in a great position, first off, to go and be demanding more money, and then to try to send yourself to a place that already is 4 deep. It just tells you that there's not a whole lot of self-reflection there.
No.
It's not just a self-reflection. It's just surrounding yourself with the right people. And this is why you pay an agent.
100%. And they're trying to do it on the cheap so they don't have to give an agent a cut. And look, there are predatory agents that are out there. We've talked about them.
Especially in NIL spaces.
Where there's some of them that are trying to get your future earnings when you go to professional ranks.
Oh, God, that
dirty
payday loan nastiness.
But you don't want to go cheap either.
No.
And the cheap is a family-run business. We're going to do the family business. They have no experience in that business.
You can do that if you're Caleb Williams and your dad is a VC manager.
Yeah.
A guy who's been in business for 40 years. That's when it works.
You can't do it if you're Dale from the Step Brothers and the family business is your dad is a doctor.
Yes. It's exactly it. Like if you've got ties and you've got a plan and you've got an execution, all the things you can do, there are exceptions to the rule, as it were. But even then, Caleb and his camp misstepped a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
It worked out in the long run for them, obviously.
Yep.
But that whole space, there's a reason why every coach in college football is represented by the same guy.
Yeah.
Like
that is true.
It matters. And look, like on the college basketball side, the big agencies, Clutch, CAA, WME, like they represent the top players in college basketball. Again, talking to scouts at Hoop Summit. These workouts for the NBA draft, they're starting today.
Yeah.
They're starting today.
Bringing them in.
And all those guys, all those top 15, top 20 players, they're all repped by basically the same 4 agencies. And so this whole, that's you don't necessarily want that to almost be monopolized because that becomes a problem too. But where you see these missteps over and over and over again come from the same places.
Well, Mario Cristobal's chimed in on it.
We're not going to do that at Miami. And I say that without any hesitation. If anyone's thinking that, And they could be the best player in the world. If they want to play holdout, they might as well play get out. We don't want to do that. We don't want Miami to become that. Too many guys have sweated, bled, have laid it on the line on that field to ever become that kind of a program.
Ooh, if you want to be a holdout, you should probably be a get out guy. That's a very on brand Mario Cristobal drop there.
Look, I don't mind a guy who gets $250,000 going to, let's say, Miami.
Mm-hmm.
Who's the Restrepo? Let's say Restrepo was a underclassman, and he came out there and had the season that he had, and he goes, Mario, I need a little more.
Yep,
I get that. I get that, but like when you're talking about you're already being paid kind of like top end slot kind of deal, and you're like, no, I want to be the top slot guy. You better be the number one quarterback in your class.
Yeah.
You better be the number one whatever in your class. And Nico, while a great prospect, is Dylan Raiola out there doing this?
No.
Like you just can't.
Well, he is, but he's doing it behind closed doors probably.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Like it's not impossible to have this happen.
Yep.
And you can find those ways and you can get those bumps. Like it happens. But to be like, no, we're not even going to communicate with the school. We're not going to communicate with the staff. We're not going to communicate with anyone. And we're just going to go out there and be like, again, to use the Cam Newton one, who can get to 250?
Right. Tax free, by the way.
Because that's what it came
Good
down
money.
to. Who's going to give $250,000? And all of a sudden, Cam Newton's at Auburn.
All right. We do have, according to On3, there are 3 leading contenders for Nico Iamaleava's services. They are UCLA, which betonline.ag has them with 2-1 odds to land him.
That worked out so well for Dante Moore.
They have got North Carolina, who On3 is saying is a known buyer in the quarterback market this spring. His asking price of $4 million could be too much for North Carolina. They are at plus 250 to land Nico. And then Tulane is the third one. Boy, that would be a funny turn of events. They lose Mensa to Duke for $4 million. They end up paying Nico $4 million to go down to New Orleans.
If you're Nico, though, why would any of those 3 programs interest you?
Yeah, I don't know. The next batch of that the odds makers have, USC is 3-1, Texas Tech 5-1, Colorado 6-1. Arizona State 7-1, Notre Dame 9-1, Maryland 11-1, Oregon at 12-1 odds there. I would be stunned if Oregon went in on them.
I mean, honestly,
with their quarterback room right now, the way it is, I don't think that fits.
On the USC side of things, their quarterback room isn't that deep. They do have a number 3 quarterback in the country in Longstreet coming in, who's obviously going to be a freshman. Beyond that, it's a little thin, but even then, I don't look at Nico as the kind of quarterback that would make sense for Lincoln Riley. Now, don't get me wrong.
Agreed.
He's the quarterback whisperer, but that's not the style I would think. And if you're Nico, why you have a great team in Tennessee that's going to elevate your platform. Like, that's the thing, where an agent be like, look, dude, is that 1.4 or 1.2? Is it that meaningful for you right now? Because if you go to Tulane and you bomb out, you're not coming back up. You're going further down.
I'll tell you what, if you are the starting quarterback at Tennessee and you beat, which he did last year, where he beat 3 of their 4 rivals. Yeah. They have 4 rivals: Georgia, Bama, Florida, Vandy.
Mm-hmm.
He beat 3 of the 4. He beat Florida, Bama, Vandy. If you do that, you're a king in that town forever. I know, because my high school quarterback
is a king in that town.
Beat all 4 of them, and he still lives in Knoxville, Tennessee.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to have to reach out to Eric and see if we can get him on to talk about this, because he has a radio show now.
Yes.
In Knoxville, because the quarterback is so damn important there.
But not only that, like your NFL profile, and look, going to a smaller school is not something that is the detriment. In fact, more often than not, it seems to help a lot of guys. But the idea that you're going to go there and be as productive and put it all on tape, it's like you're going to have less weapons. You're going to have less opportunities. You're going to have less big games. Like Tennessee, every game is a big game.
Everyone.
I don't get it, man.
No.
I don't.
I don't either. This is an unfortunate situation. It's gonna be. Look, it already is an outlier. Is it gonna happen again? Yeah, it'll happen again. But at the same time, look, this is a product of the system, and there's going to be some players that try to over leverage themselves. That's what Nico.
Every
did,
year it's going to be this.
And this is where we are.
All right, coming up next, time for our worst day on the web. And ladies and gentlemen, we return to Florida. But first, here's the Big Kahuna with the Sports Center update.
Hamburgers, the cornerstone of any nutritious breakfast.
Now, from the George McCoy at Warren Allen Sports Desk, a Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
This update brought to you by Vulcan Design and Construction. Check out their award-winning outdoor living designs or schedule your free design consultation at vulcandc.com. First on The Fan. A few hours before trouncing the Lakers backups yesterday, the Blazers announced they've agreed to a multi-year extension with head coach Chauncey Billups. Portland increased their win total by 14 games over last season. The Phoenix Suns have fired head coach Mike Budenholzer after just one season on the bench. Phoenix missed the play-in with the largest payroll in league history and will now look for a head coach for the third consecutive offseason. The NBA play-in games start tomorrow afternoon, 4:30 tip, with the 7 versus 8 seed games. First up will be the Hawks at the Magic, and then followed by the Grizzlies at the Warriors. We'll have both games over across the hall on 910 ESPN Portland. The Blazers are the Mariners, how about that? Winners of their last 4 games. Off today as they start a 9-game road trip at the Reds, Blue Jays, and Red Sox. Seattle now 8-8 on the season, third in the AL West, but just a game and a half out of the lead. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Jeff Rust from the George McCoy at Warren Allen Sports Desk. Hurt and missing work, insurance companies acting like jerks. Don't call your mom. Call George McCoy at warrenallen.com.
The Fan Merch Locker has a new black 1080 The Fan hoodie, as well as classic long and short sleeve tees. Get yours now at 1080thefan.com.
Dana Meringue here. Guess what? It's springtime. The best time to get those home projects you put on the back burner taken care of. Old windows costing you money on your energy bills? Is your bathroom
I mean, if we had a running tally board of the number of times we went to the state of Florida for worst day on the web.
Oh, we were in the Gulf on Friday. It was pods of killer whales are in Gulf of Mexico in places that they haven't been before.
Gulf of America.
Yeah, and/or. Depending on.
Look, man, Google calls it Gulf of America.
Yeah. Being in Mexico, they don't call it that there.
It was funny. I wanted to see where my wife was on her cruise a couple weeks ago, and with the Find My iPhone thing, I was like, I wonder where they're at. I click on it, and on my phone it says Gulf of America, and I was like,
they changed that.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
They were
we're
like,
there.
all right, we'll still take these federal contracts if we just change that there.
Sure, why not?
So they did it.
But in Florida, a woman is arrested and facing charges for selling human bones in a curio store.
Oh.
Human bones. A Deltona woman was placed in handcuffs after an officer found human bones among her wares at a curio store.
Okay, so
dubbed Wicked Wonderland.
Okay, so let me get this straight. She was like in her little store saying, you know what? I've got human bones. I'm going to sell these human bones here. And I'm going to market them as human bones I'm selling.
Yeah, no.
Am I getting that correct? Like
100%.
She was like stunned at being arrested. Like, what? You can't even sell human bones anymore? Thought this was America.
Pretty much.
Thought this was Florida.
Yeah.
All right.
Advertising on a Facebook page.
Oh, boy.
Oh, yeah. Facebook Marketplace, baby. 2 human skull fragments for $90, a human clavicle and scapula for $90, a human rib for $35, a human vertebra for $35, a partial human skull, $600.
Good on the police for being like, hey, so where'd you get these from? You know, where did she get them?
So,
like, where do you even start with procuring such things to sell?
An officer went to the store and spoke with one of its owners, who stated the business had been selling human bones for years and was unaware it was illegal to do so in Florida.
Okay. But again, where did she get the... Where do you get the bones?
She confirmed the store had multiple human bone fragments, all purchased from private sellers. Does that make it better or worse?
So worse? Are you reading this article as like trying to throw people off the scent? Were you one of her suppliers? Is this how you were getting rid of?
I wouldn't let somebody else handle my evidence. Yeah. You kidding me?
I can't believe that this person thought, yeah, this is on the up and up. This is totally
even
legal.
Better. She says she mentioned she had documentation for these transactions, but could not provide them at the moment. She described the bones as genuine human remains and delicate in nature.
Okay. All right. I don't even know where you start. Like, was she on like Silk Road, somewhere in the dark corners of the dark web in getting this? And then who is the clientele buying the human bones? What do you buy the human bones for?
Well,
what need would a person have to where they're like, you know what I need? Human skull fragment here. Not knowing the human,
so it's not
where it came from.
Quite as insidious as you might think. Again, still not great. This is not great, Bob. But the crime lab was able to work up that the confiscated cranium belonged to an adult man and was likely an archaeological find.
Oh, so it's an old skull.
That one isn't time dated. One of the skull fragments came from a right bone of the skull and was also likely an archaeological find. The cervical vertebra may have been part of an anatomical model due to its condition in uniform brown coloration.
Okay. Now we're getting, the university has the bone, the skeleton model, and they're like, all right, we're done with this thing.
And
we're going to sell it to the curio store.
Bone.
Yeah.
So a sample taken from one of the other bones revealed it could be over 100 years old, and another bone sample suggested an age of over 500 years old.
Wow. So, okay,
So all
this
of them-
makes it sound a little better, but it's still
it's a little
very
less serial
weird.
killer selling is. My wife watches every serial killer documentary thing known to man, and the first thing that popped in my head, do you know about the Long Beach serial killer in Long Island?
Oh, yeah.
There's a doc that my wife was watching, and they found bag after bag after bag after bag on this beach.
Dang.
Of remains. So it's not like it's like some serial killer, unless it's like, Jack the Ripper's great grandkids selling off bones, which not out of the question.
In play.
It appears that these are more archaeological finds, which also is just like, are people like digging up old burial sites? Which
that leads more to
grave
Florida
robbers and
than just Florida man. Like, oh, well, I don't know what to do with this skull. I guess I'll sell it to Linda at the curio store.
It's just, there's probably some voodoo-ish rituals that could probably have. I mean, again,
100%.
I don't know where in Florida this is at. I'm
doesn't matter actually.
Well, I'm leaning very strongly towards Panhandle.
Yeah, like
this
or creeping down like Gulf Coast, just north of Tampa there.
Yeah. In that region, this doesn't scream
South
Keys or South Beach. You know what I mean? Like, it definitely screams Lake Okeechobee.
We're in that.
A lot of the military testing range parts of Florida.
I'm with you on that.
That's what I'm picking up here. But yeah, this is a lot.
So we still don't know though what she was selling the skulls for.
No,
or bone parts for.
I don't know if they tracked down any customers who were trying to buy this stuff, but
I can't believe I didn't know that this wasn't legal.
I mean, it's Florida.
Yeah, but still,
also
it's
not
human
legal.
remains.
It's not legal in Florida, which is it specifies like, is there somewhere in the country where it is legal?
Well, let's check to see if it's legal here in Oregon.
I mean, it's pretty liberal.
Which states?
We allow possession of mushrooms now.
Yeah.
So
I think human bones are a little different.
I mean, some people grind them up.
Well, hot damn.
Legal here?
No. There are 3 states in which it is legal to buy and sell human bones in the U.S.
Are we talking deliverance
There
for
is
any of these states?
not one that is north of the Mason-Dixon line.
Is Tennessee on the list?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, that's kind of what I figured. Eastern Tennessee definitely feels like that's on the list. Yeah. Oh, are we going full? Is there a state on here that's not a Hills Have Eyes situation?
No.
What are we working with? Tennessee,
Georgia, and Louisiana.
Louisiana was 100% on the list.
Yeah, because New Orleans voodoo. With the voodoo. Yeah. And
but
then
Georgia's
in there.
Bit surprising.
Well, you get outside of Atlanta and
I know.
You're slapping banjos pretty quickly.
I was thinking maybe Arkansas.
That would have been a good one.
That was my next guess.
Yeah. The only 3 states though. I'm happy Oregon's not one.
Sure.
I'm happy.
Just makes it harder to dispose of, which is again why you use the ocean.
A quick Google search just would have ended that really quickly.
Yeah, but I mean, then you can plead ignorance.
Yeah, well, I have a feeling this woman is going to be
ignorant,
very ignorant.
Yeah, she's out on $7,500 bail.
That seems cheap.
I mean,
I'm here for it.
Again, if the
500-year-old head.
That's the thing is like if the bones were younger. Yeah. A lot more questions are being asked. I don't think we're solving any cold cases with 500-year-old bones.
The sale of human remains is broadly and expressly illegal in only 8 states. Well, now we have
totally forbidden in any shape, manner, or form.
Yeah, and this is going against. This is from law.com, so I'm assuming
that's law.com a lot like I'm sure MD.com.
Yeah, dude, it's everything is illegal on this website. But it said that the 8 states where it is broadly illegal is Georgia is one of them. Florida, Georgia, Massachusetts, Missouri, New Hampshire, South Carolina. We're only up to 6 there. I don't even know. Oh, I'm getting paywalled here.
Dun, 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 dun.
Damn, they did it to me again.
Yeah, that's what they do.
Yeah. So I don't know.
So
don't know
don't.
The other 2.
Moral of the story: don't try to sell your remains.
Yeah, don't do it unless you're in a few of those states.
Even then, Fargo.
Golly, wood chipper?
Yeah,
you just wood chipper it. God,
It's a lot easier.
Gross, dude.
Look.
Mm.
Everybody always wants to go full on Goodfellas. That's a lot more work, man.
YouTube chat. Hey, Susan, Jay Dahmer sent an email asking if we need any human bones for store inventory.
Well, I don't know. Let's see what he's got. Let's see his wares.
Oh, man.
All right. Well, from one skull to another, one still covered with skin and hair.
Oh, my gosh.
You like that? You like this transition?
I don't know this tease.
Yeah. Is it dyed? We'll get to that and more. Come over here on Danny and Dusty today, the Fan. the biggest mystery in college football. Does Ryan Day dye his beard? Well, his wife, Christina Day, went after Clay Travis and said, I have never once known Ryan Day to dye his beard.
Yeah, this was after Clay Travis went on a rant saying you can't trust a man who dyes his beard. And this has been a topic of discussion on this program quite often about Ryan Day's beard being dyed. And weird. When you can Google Ryan Day, or on YouTube, when you put in like Ryan Day, if you keep scrolling down, you'll find a video of us talking about it. That's odd. But his wife is saying, I've known him my entire life, and I don't know him to have ever dyed his beard. Never once dyed his beard. Move on to the next narrative, because Clay Travis went on a rant about you can't trust a person with a dyed beard. And I don't know about that. That seems very, Colin Cowherd going off on the backwards hat. And I disagree with that one. But when you Google Ryan Day gray beard, there are a ton of photos that will pop up of him with a gray beard, including one from a year ago, almost to the day, April 19th, 2024. There was a photo that a guy said, I've been telling you, he dyes his beard. And his beard looks very gray.
Mm-hmm.
When you go and you look up, because he was on the Big Ten Network that day, he doesn't have a gray beard.
You can find other photos, though. His press conference in 2020.
Yeah.
You can find him with shorter facial hair where there's gray.
Yeah.
And it's
on the chin mostly.
A little bit in the mustache, too.
I don't know what to believe here. Well, I know he dyes. I believe he dyes his beard, but the extent of black that his beard is,
light escapes it.
Yeah,
it is like a black hole.
It is not unnatural.
He's 46 years old.
Mm-hmm.
You can't have hair that dark.
Well,
like at any point in time, let alone at 46. And look, here's the thing: Ryan Day's got good, strong facial hair.
Great facial hair.
Great beard.
He looks weird without one.
Oh, he does. But the idea that he doesn't dye it is insane. It is like, do you remember the Brian Colangelo thing when his wife was running the burner account when he was with the 76ers and his collar being too big on his shirt? Find a new slant.
Yeah.
This sounds like Ryan Day's wife hitting with a find a new slant.
Yeah, I'm finding so many videos where it is jet black, but then there's a few where he's got some gray speckled in, but it's only like when it's super close up.
Mm-hmm.
Because
the jet black, it's like, it looks like Carlos Boozer painted his hair.
But isn't this a weird spot for his wife, who is not active on social media, to come out and die on that hill for her husband?
I mean, Colangelo's wife did it over his shirt collar size. So no, it's not the weirdest thing I've seen a significant other do.
It's definitely dyed.
It's dyed.
All right.
And
so we're not going to believe his wife.
God, I'm saying this.
This is tough.
I agree with Clay Travis in this.
Oh, you can't trust a man with a.
I think I literally said that.
He won a national championship,
bar for bar. The beard, like, especially if you don't look. Brian Urlacher betrayed the bald men, but he admitted it.
You know what I'm finding here? It from a distance, it looks very, very black, but when you get up close to it, there's some people that are like zooming cameras in. As you zoom in, you do start seeing some gray.
But we've seen it to where there's none, and it's so black. It is impossibly black.
Yeah. I don't know how to feel about this. I mean, he's doing the Just for Men, like a touch of gray. A touch of gray. Maybe he's doing the touch of gray.
Look, salt and pepper, it works.
It does.
Look, I think he pulled the salt and pepper off quite well.
Maybe he's using the Ron Popeil spray-on stuff, so technically he's not dyeing it.
Oh.
You know what? You're probably right. He's probably never used beard dye. He's using beard
spray.
Balm.
Yeah. This is a daily routine that he goes through. All right, I'm willing to subscribe to any
Just take some old some boot shoe polish.
Sometimes vanity knows no bounds.
And just work it in.
Yeah. The day in question that a lot of the gray beard speculation, there are photos where it does not look nearly as gray, and that's just blowing my mind. Maybe it's an Angles thing. Maybe he's got iridescent beard where it just like in the light it looks gray, and most of the time
Funhouse mirrors. If you're at the right angle, you can see the white underneath it.
Yeah,
Ryan Day's beard is like transition lenses.
Yes, it is. He has a transition lens beard going on. I'll be damned. But for the record, though, when you Google from here on moving forward, Ryan Day dyes beard, that's going to be the first thing that pops up is his wife saying, no, he doesn't do it. So,
and again,
I guess that's a win for him.
I think Rust is onto something here.
Yeah.
He may not dye it. Maybe he uses some other.
Getting off on a technicality.
Yeah.
That's right.
Look.
Which would explain the transition lens because it's so shiny, the light hits it, looks gray.
If the glove don't fit, you must have quit.
All right. Well, Ryan Day, no dyeing that beard.
There we go. All right, coming up in hour number 3, we will finally get to the Masters and let Dusty wax poetic about Rory McIlroy and finally achieving the career Grand Slam. In hour number 3, Danny and Dusty, 10 to the Fan.
Now, from the George McCoy at Warren Allen Sports Desk, a Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
Jeff Rust with your Sports Center update. First on The Fan. A few hours before trouncing the Lakers backups yesterday, the Trailblazers announced they agreed to a multi-year extension with head coach Chauncey Billups. Portland increased their win total by 14 games over last season. Phoenix Suns have fired head coach Mike Budenholzer after just one season on the bench. Phoenix missed the play-in with the largest payroll in league history and will now look for a head coach for the third consecutive offseason. The NBA play-in games start tomorrow night with the 7 versus 8 seed games. First up at 4:30 will be the Hawks at the Magic. That'll be followed by the Grizzlies at the Warriors, and we'll have coverage of both games across the hall on 910 ESPN Portland. And the Mariners, winners of their last 4 games, they're off today as they head to the road for a 9-game trip at the Reds, Blue Jays, and Red Sox. Seattle now 8-8 on the season, third in the AL West, but just a game and a half out of the lead. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Jeff Rust from the George McCoy at Warren Allen Sports Desk. Hurt and missing work, insurance companies acting like jerks? Don't call your mom. Call George McCoy at warrenallen.com.
Live, local, and free. No subscription required. Portland's sports leader is 1080 The Fan. Danny Meringue.
Dusty Bun?
Dusty Hera.
I've been really busy. I'm trying to save the world from Russians and monsters.
This is Danny and Dusty on the Odyssey app and Portland's sports leader.
Of course you have.
1080.
I want to hear it.
The Fan.
Hour number 3 here on Danny and Dusty on a Monday afternoon. Whether listening on 1080 AM, watching along on youtube.com/1080am The Fan or twitch.tv/1080am The Fan. We appreciate you. We love you. Thank you for hanging out with us on this wonderful, wonderful Monday. And finally, Dusty, we will talk Masters and Rory McIlroy winning in a playoff and securing his career Grand Slam. Definitely not without the drama.
It was a perfect day of sport for Augusta National and the Masters because you had everything that everybody was hoping for in that round. They got it with Rory melting down, but then still finding a way to win.
Mm-hmm.
It was absolutely everything. He's the first Masters winner to have 4 double bogeys in 4 rounds of golf. He had 2 in the final round and was able to still find a way to win that. Coming off the tee and going in the bunker and then double bogeying the opening hole. His 2-shot lead gets evaporated. Second hole goes in the bunker off the tee again.
And missed both those shots by a half yard. If he clears the lip of the bunker,
unbelievable.
His opening drive goes probably 345 yards.
But it's in the bunker and he doubles. And then he gives up the lead to Bryson on 2. And then he just kind of methodically fights his way back, stays near the top, then double bogeys again on the 13th hole.
And that's when you thought, oh no. It felt like at 13 after that double, the unraveling was going to happen.
But then 15 happens, and to have a signature shot of not just your round, that tournament, your Grand Slam, but probably his career on 15 with a big draw around the tree, and then just nestling up to about 6 feet from the cup. Now, he missed that putt, but he still birdies 15, and you're going, that was insane, especially because it was right after Bryson dunks it in the water.
Yeah.
And you're going, so much could go wrong here. But he didn't. He ended up finding a way. And then on 18, he goes into that bunker on 18, and you're like, there's no freaking way this is going to happen to him. Goes to the playoff and beats Justin Rose. And to see his reaction afterwards, I mean, if you don't have any sort of feeling in you when you saw Rory drop to his knees and you saw how much that meant to him, you don't like sports, because that was like a 5 billion pound gorilla jumping off his back.
Like we talked about this going to the Masters. I appreciate the Masters. I thoroughly enjoy it, but it is not on my bucket list of like, oh, I would have to go to this. But like when I said that, I also said, look, if you gave me Tiger in his prime, because he gave you those moments.
Yeah.
The unbelievable shots that we've seen Tiger hit there year after year after year throughout his career became like this thing that you just had to see. With Rory, unfortunately, it was him melting down.
Yep.
And when he got that double on 13, he got the double because he laid up. And it was just like, oh no. He's scared and he's unraveling, which is so counter to what we've seen from guys like Tiger and Jack and the guys that are just cutthroats. And that has been the knock on Rory, is that when he unravels, he tends to pull the reins back and get super tight, and then you see just it all. Bleh. To see him rebound from that, like you said,
awesome.
That's what makes this tournament great, is those usually the closing 2 holes.
Yep. I don't know if we've seen quite that kind of drama. Like, there's been a lot of drama in tournaments, but with what was at stake for Rory, you know, like Tiger in 2019 made grown men cry.
Yes.
Because it was like his career was over. This was so different because he finally did it.
It was redemptive.
He, in doing that, he became the first European to complete the career Grand Slam. He's the first guy in 50 years to do it. First Masters winner to make 4 double bogeys and still win the tournament. Second most career starts to ever win a Masters. 17 times he's played that course, and he's been on the margins every single time, and he's missed it. And he's the first European to reach 5 major wins since Nick Faldo in 1992. That is absolutely crazy. And by the way, it was the largest deficit to come back from to win a Masters. He was down 7 strokes at one point and it was able to come back and win. Not yesterday, obviously.
No, over the tournament.
But over the tournament. And that, like, to see the drama unfold the way it did, because Rory was, everybody's like, oh boy, Rory is going to melt down. But it ended up, Bryson was the guy who just fell apart and the wheels fell off for him. And that was at the end of the tournament. But Justin Rose to knock down a 20-foot putt on 18, to be there waiting for him at the end, like, incredible drama. Now you have Justin Rose, who's lost 2 playoffs at the Masters in 2017 to Sergio Garcia. Now he loses this one. Now you have a completely different storyline of a guy who came out firing early, and it was white knuckling it to the end, found a way to force that playoff.
What a putt.
And ends up falling short. It had every single bit of drama, and then all the stories, like the way the broadcast kind of let everything play out, with the story of his dad working 100 hours a week, his mom working a night shift just so they could give Rory kind of that life of golf. It was just like, gives you all the tingles. And then after he wins, Joe Pompliano did this on Twitter. So when Rory won and the putt fell, for 7 minutes, Jim Nantz and Trevor Immelman said 46 words. Look, they just let everything play out.
That's where Nantz shines. It's golf is where Nantz does his best work. He has the conversations, but he lets golf breathe, and it needs to. You need to have the applause. You need to have the caddy running over. You need to have the family hug.
And hearing all of those conversations.
Yes, like, and just letting what happens happen.
Yep.
Because in other sports, when you win titles, there's so much and there's so many people. With golf and tennis, boxing, individual sports, wrestling, it's about that person and that person's journey. It's not about the team. It's not about the coach. It's not about the owner. It's not about this, that. It is about that person, what they've endured, and what they've completed.
It was really cool to see Rory kind of play out the way it did. And then afterwards, Bryson was asked about, Rory being locked in.
Did you speak to him in there? How's he doing? Do you know?
No idea. Didn't talk to me once all day.
Did you try and initiate conversation with Rory at all?
He wouldn't talk to me.
The bad blood's still there between those two guys, and you could kind of feel that as they were walking up the course too.
He also went on to say that he was just locked in. Bryson's going to be viewed as Bryson, but I thought he had some really good comments and didn't make it about himself or any of that stuff. He's like, look, I fell apart. And he goes, honestly, when Rory hit that shot, the double, he was like, I felt awful for him. And to be honest, it felt like something I would do.
Yeah.
There was some self-awareness to him and his shortcomings. And I've come around on Bryson.
Yeah, I have too. Whatever.
I'm not sure there's ever been really a bigger reverse heel turn.
Yeah. No, totally. And I really think he's not perfect, but
he's way more engaging than Rory is at this point. In his career.
Yes. And golf needs it.
Yeah.
That's the thing. But congrats to Rory in completing that Grand Slam, because boy did it evade him for just so stinking. 2014 was one of the first chance he had.
Yeah.
So 11 years?
11 years. It took him 11 times, the most for anybody to complete a Grand Slam. So after you get the other ones, to get that final one was 3 tries. His was 11.
Which is
11.
why you saw him kind of fall apart the way that he did.
Yeah, man. And I'm happy for Rory. Big day for the TGL, too. TGL.
Yeah.
Huh? Playoff between 2 TGL legends.
Little bump up there for you.
Boston Commons, Rory McIlroy in Los Angeles.
There you go.
Golf Club's Justin Rose.
That's exactly the things you think about
That's
an
what
associate.
everybody was thinking.
Yeah,
You know, if
100%.
the Liv was going to get the bump, how about Liv falling apart? Yeah. With the exception of Patrick Reed, but he doesn't have his soul, so who cares?
Yeah, and he slipped that putt by. Did you see the little 5-footer he missed?
Yeah.
Oh, it was like, oof. That's got
Couldn't happen to a better guy. Bad day for Ludwig Oberg.
Oh man,
triple bogey on 18.
That hurt.
Relatable golf, and that was the thing about Rory's round is like, I've been there. I've duffed one into a creek before. Nobody's above that, but Ludwig Oberg, that triple bogey, you know how much that cost him? Triple bogey.
I'm gonna guess like $250,000.
$514,500.
You think a skins game is tough? Talk about $500,000 going out on one hole.
Yeah, man.
One hole.
Yeah, that's brutal, dude. That is brutal. That's a tough way to go. That's a really tough way to go.
That sucks.
But it was really cool to see all the photos, and that's one thing Augusta does really well. I saw that there was a local golf pro, like he was just at the tournament. He got booted because he brought his cell phone out. The pictures of those guys teeing off and everybody's just watching them golf. There's no phone in sight. It's awesome.
Pretty cool.
It is
Locked
awesome
in.
to see that. Yeah. And then have you heard about the marker, that place?
Mm-mm.
So Augusta National, what they'll do is like the club champion. If an odd number of guys make the cut, then they have their club champ go out and play. Doesn't keep score. Just goes along the course. And for the last couple of years is this guy named Michael McDermott. Okay.
That's a golfy name.
Yeah. Well, he's a CEO of a financial services firm, a venture capital firm. And he ended up playing with Tom Kim on Saturday. And Tom Kim said, dude, the guy's just a baller. Like goes out and these guys just fire. Like, they play Augusta regularly.
Yeah.
This guy is also a member at Pine Valley and Marion Country Clubs. Augusta National, Pine Valley, and Marion.
Must be nice.
Like, Pine Valley is one of the most exclusive clubs in like, even more so than Augusta.
Yeah.
It's one of the most exclusive clubs in America. This dude is filthy rich and a +3 handicap. That dude's living the dream.
I hope he's got terrible other things happening to him.
I bet he doesn't.
If he did, he has a cure for him.
Yeah.
Because he has all the money.
And he looks very unassuming.
Good.
Just tall, skinny guy.
I hope so.
Hits a ball like 300 plus.
Monster.
Yeah.
I hate it.
Some guys have it all.
Well, things aren't going so well for folks in the NBA. Black Monday is here upon us, and the first changes of the offseason are rolling out. We'll dive into that next here on Danny Dusty, Danny the Fan. The hiring and firing period of the NBA season is upon us as the regular season came to a close last night in the NBA. The first on the chopping block, Mike Budenholzer, head coach or former head coach of the Phoenix Suns. To no one's surprise, he is out in Phoenix. Also in New Orleans, general manager David Griffin is also out. There might be still a few more changes depending on what happens here in the playoffs. And potential moves that can be made, but the Phoenix Suns have now fired 3 coaches in 3 straight seasons. Monty Williams, Frank Vogel, and Mike Budenholzer. Into the texter's point earlier about title-winning coaches.
Yikes.
Frank Vogel, Mike Budenholzer, both title-winning coaches that did not figure it out with the Phoenix Suns. And this is why I always fall back on the Jimmys and Joes and the relationships and the ability to communicate.
Relationships are the big one there because I don't know what coach goes in with the 3 loaded contracts they have and can get through. Honestly, who could they get to come in?
Bradley Beal's just happy to be there. That's the story out of Phoenix from everybody.
No trade clause.
Yeah, that's what I mean. He's like, well, they can't do anything to me, and that's the danger of that no trade.
That
clause.
is the worst type of person to give a no trade clause to.
Mm-hmm.
Because his complacency
to his
is
agent,
just like, whatever.
Jeff Schwartz, I believe, is his agent. Great job, but he's just chilling. Look,
with that much money, you'd be happy anywhere, Bradley. Just go and get dealt to somebody who is the Pittsburgh Pirates. I don't even know if there's any teams that are in that position that could take him on.
Oh, they are going to do everything they can to get rid of him. But he's also said, I hold all the cards. But so it's
that was an awful trade at the time. It's even worse now.
Yeah. And as it pertains to Phoenix, Chauncey Billups was a real option.
Mm-hmm.
I've been told by numerous people that Matt Ishbia, again, where did Matt Ishbia play college basketball?
Michigan State.
What fan did he grow up, or what team did he grow up a fan of?
Detroit Pistons.
Okay, draw the lines, man. Like, this is what I always talk about with ownership. It's new ownership does not solve everything. And like, oh, it's great to have Matt Ishbia spend all the money. It's also better to have a lot more foresight than what he has said over the last couple of weeks, which is, I'm going to do everything every single year to try to win. And it's like, well, if you don't have the assets and you don't have the things that can actually get you there, you're putting yourself in a worse position literally every year.
Yeah, but he put him on the table by going out and getting KD right off the bat and getting trying to do something with Bradley Beal, but that was just an awful trade from the get-go.
Yeah.
And he wants it though, and at least they know he wants it.
It's a good position to be in, to have an owner that cares and wants to win, because there are owners that don't care to win. And in the NBA, I don't think there's too many of those that don't care about winning. In Major League Baseball, there's a lot of them that don't care about winning.
Yeah.
In the NFL, I think even the bad owners care about winning.
Yeah.
Like, I think Tepper cares about winning with Carolina.
Yep.
Shad Khan with the Jaguars, I think he cares about winning. In the NBA, they've pretty much gotten rid of all of those. I really can't think of an owner. Reinsdorf?
I was just going to say the Chicago Bulls have that.
That's probably about it. I can't think of any. Well, Benson, and no, the new ownership does care about winning in Charlotte.
Washington.
No, Leonsis cares about winning there.
They don't really show it.
Well, I think they've been dumb in the actions they've pursued, but Leonsis cares about winning. I mean, shows it on the NHL side.
Yeah.
I think Gail Benson in New Orleans is probably the other one, where the Saints matter more than the Pelicans, which, again, the Pelicans just fired their general manager, David Griffin, and Joe Dumars is the favorite to replace him. And think about this for a second. Two phones, Joe. The Pelicans have a chance to have a top 4 pick in the NBA draft lottery, and the guy that they are about to hire might be the guy that drafted Darko Milicic.
Yikes.
Over Carmelo Anthony.
You know, the one franchise to keep an eye on in the how much do they really care and want to win is Clay Bennett in Oklahoma City, because every time somebody gets expensive, they ship him off.
Because he does not have the money.
They're going to have a lot of people that they're going to have to pay very soon.
In the next 3 years. That is the exact conversation that I had with an executive Saturday night.
That's going to be really tough for
Everyone's
them to do.
eyeing that because of how expensive these, like we talked about with Wemby. when he gets up at his super max, his 9-year going into his 10-year deal, that's going to be $100 million a year with the way things are going. How many, for those that don't know, Clay Bennett's net worth, I believe, is $600 or $650 million.
Hot dang.
How is he going to be able to afford? How are any of the owners who don't have billions upon billions going to be able to afford that? And that's a discussion for another day. But as we look around the NBA right now, you can argue about the Blazers bringing back Chauncey Billups, Joe Cronin. They have a path now, and they know who they're going forward with. The Phoenix Suns are still trying to figure it out. The New Orleans Pelicans are trying to figure it out. The Denver Nuggets are trying to figure it out. Like, you're looking at teams that the Pelicans were a team that a lot of people picked to go to the Western Conference Finals coming into this year, as insane as that is to say. If you go back and look at a lot of the predictions, New Orleans was picked anywhere between 1, 2, and 3. Because, like, oh, Zion might actually be healthy. Herb Jones is really turning into a dude. Trey Murphy III is really turning into a dude. Like, they're just kind of like going down the list of things that they did. DeJounte Murray, like they're like, this team looks like Brandon Ingram. Like, if you look at their roster and you take a step back and don't have the year that they just had in the back of your head, a lot of the projections were this team could do something.
Yeah, then every single one of those guys got hurt, whether it was Bruce Brown, Zion, Trey Murphy.
With bad injuries. I mean,
really bad injuries.
DeJounte not only broke his wrist, but also tore his Achilles.
Yeah.
Trey Murphy was a shoulder. Herb Jones, I believe, was also a shoulder. Like, you just kind of go down the list. You're like, ooh, these are bad things that have happened to your organization.
Yep.
So we'll keep track on these. It does sound like the leading candidate right now to replace Mike Budenholzer, New Orleans head coach Willie Green.
Oh, of course.
Willie Green has ties to James Jones, the general manager of the Suns, and the Phoenix Suns.
Perfect.
So as the wheel turns, as it were, it's a lot. All right. The big news coming out of the weekend, besides Rory McIlroy, is the Blazers retaining Chauncey Billups, extending Joe Cronin, and what that means going forward. There was a lot more that came out of exit interviews about the grand scope of the organization. We'll get to that next here. But first, here's the Big Kahuna with Sports Center Update.
Now, from the George McCoy at Warren Allen Sports Desk, a Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
First on The Fan, a few hours before trouncing the Lakers backups yesterday, the Blazers announced they've agreed to a multi-year extension with head coach Chauncey Billups. Portland increased their win total by 14 games over the previous season. Phoenix Suns have fired head coach Mike Budenholzer after just one season on the bench. Phoenix missed the play-in with the largest payroll in league history and will now look for a head coach for the third consecutive off season. The NBA play-in games start tomorrow afternoon with the 7 versus 8 seed games. First up at 4:30 will be the Hawks at the Magic, and followed by the Grizzlies at the Warriors. Both games will be on 910 ESPN Portland. And the Mariners, winners of their last 4 in a row, they're off today as they start a 9-game road trip at the Reds, Blue Jays, and Red Sox. A colorful road trip, if you will. Seattle now 8-8 on the season, third in the AL West, but just a game and a half out of the lead. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Jeff Rust from the George McCoy at Warren Allen Sports Desk. Hurt and missing work, insurance companies acting like jerks. Don't call your mom. Call George McCoy at warrenallen.com.
Save the date. Your local Toyota dealers present the 11th annual Fan Golf Classic at Langdon Farms Golf Club on Tuesday, June 24th. Keep it on the Fan for details.
We knew it was going to happen. Two teams in the Western Conference Finals were going to find themselves in the play-in that probably didn't expect themselves to be there. As the season came to a close yesterday or last night, the Golden State Warriors fall to the Los Angeles Clippers in overtime behind James Harden going absolutely bonkers, 39 points, 10 assists, and taking over an overtime period with 12 points, a steal and a block.
Watch out. This Clippers team has won 8 in a row heading into the playoffs, and now they're a 5 seed, and they go to Denver to open this thing up. A Denver team that has fired their head coach.
A point guard's not healthy.
Back on the rails, though, with David Adelman, where they've won 3 in a row, and it's not going horribly for them. But you get a red-hot team with the superstar who is back to playing the load that he needs to be playing in the playoffs in Kawhi Leonard. Watch out now.
And the Clippers also have Ivica Zubac, who is one of the few bigs in the league. While nobody can stop Jokic, you're comfortable single covering him and going, hey, we're going to live with what he gives you, and we're going to try and take away everything else. And Kawhi Leonard is looking like Kawhi Leonard again. It's terrifying.
Yep.
But with that win, like you mentioned, the Clippers are out of the play-in. They sent the Golden State Warriors to a play-in game against the Memphis Grizzlies, who 2 weeks ago were in the 3 seed.
And now they are 8th. Golden State, if they win that game tomorrow, which I believe they will.
I believe they will, too. They will play the Houston Rockets.
The Rockets will be dogs with 52 wins this season.
It's insane. I get it that Houston, all of the offensive struggles. Did you see what Amen Thompson did to Steph Curry last time they played?
Well, and you also have Jimmy Butler with a thigh contusion that he's working through.
Yeah, because Kawhi Leonard's tree trunk leg went right into Jimmy's thigh last night. I tell you what, Jimmy looked pretty damn good last night, but he definitely looked a little hobbled. And instead of getting a week off now, they got to play tomorrow.
Yeah, and here's the thing with Houston, though, is that they wrapped up the season with the Denver Nuggets, right? And that was like kind of the Ime Udoka test of, all right, how game are you for a desperate team in a desperate situation? It didn't go well.
He played his starters in the first half. So I was talking to somebody in the Houston front office, so it's Thursday or Friday, about what the Rockets were going to do. And they're like, we're not sure yet. Do we want to rest guys? Do we want to tempt the basketball gods? Do we want to be playing our best basketball going in? And they kind of did both.
Yeah.
They rested some guys. They kind of like made sure guys were still moving and going out there. Basically, they said, okay, we're going to put you guys out in the first half, and then we'll see how things go. After the first quarter, it was kind of like, all right, pack it up. And it was, I think to your point, they wanted to see how things looked against the Nuggets, because if they go all in, they could knock the Nuggets down.
Yeah, especially after it went against the Lakers, where the Lakers mopped them.
Yes.
They played 4 playoff teams to wrap up the regular season, and they went 1-3. That one win, though, was against the Golden State Warriors, who needed a win there. I guess they played 5 in a row, and they beat the Thunder, who were resting guys, but they beat Golden State, lost to LA, both LA teams, the Clippers and the Lakers, and then lost to the Nuggets at the end.
I don't think the play-in games are going to have any juice, but the teams coming out of the play-in,
hells yeah,
could make it spicy.
All right, coming up next, you got 4 hours of power from their mouths to your ears. It's prime time with Ice Good Souk. Have a great Monday, everybody. We'll see you on a sunny Tuesday from noon to 3 right here on The Fan.
Bye.
You know what's better than a limited time deal? An unlimited time deal. That's why the Wendy's $5 Biggie Bag with a Junior Bacon Cheeseburger, 4-piece nugs, Junior Hot and Crispy Fries, and small soft drink is available all the time. Because the best time for fresh, never frozen